She climbed over my ranch gate like a raccoon in a sundress, screaming that my locked driveway violated HOA visibility rules. I thought it was a prank, until she tried to pry the gate open with a tire iron. 10 minutes later, deputies pulled up, and you know what they said? They told her to back off my property or face trespassing charges, and she still wouldn't leave. But what happens when the HOA tries to find me anyway? Without knowing I just bought the road they use for access? Stick around, because by the end of this, the woman trying to tear down my gate will be negotiating with livestock for a right-of-way. You can't lock this. This is public HOA space. That was the first thing I heard when I stepped out of my barn that morning. Not birds, not wind, not the hum of fence current. Just Karen screaming at the top of her lungs, red-faced and pacing back and forth in front of my new gate like a rabid auctioneer with a clipboard. I stood there in dusty boots, holding a wrench in one hand, mouth full of granola bar, watching, her claw at the chain link like she was about to reenact a zombie movie. This wasn't just annoyance anymore. This was an on-site breakdown. Let me back up, but just half a step. The gate wasn't new. It was an upgrade. Thicker steel. Automatic. Hinge, keypad entry from my contractor, and a fresh coat of black enamel. Why? Because last month someone's kid came joyriding up my private ranch road and nearly ran into one of my cattle pens. And when I brought it up at the HOA meeting, Karen, the secretary, self-declared compliance goddess, told me, and I quote, "Maybe if your property didn't look like Jurassic Park, people wouldn't think it's just open space." So yeah, I put up the gate, legally, with permits, on my own land. And now here she was, banging on it with a tire iron like I had kidnapped her right to be nosy. Clang! The metal groaned as she yanked on the edge of the gate. "I'm calling." "The sheriff!" she screeched. "Good," I thought. "Please do." "Go ahead," I said, walking up to the fence with my coffee mug. "You're the one on the wrong side of the property line." She waved her clipboard. "You are in direct violation of Maple Ridge HOA Code 12.4. Shared viewscape obstruction and unapproved permanent construction." I sipped calmly. Funny, because the county code, the assessor's map, and the permit from zoning say otherwise. She jabbed her pen through the fence slats like she was trying to poke a hole in my argument. "This road is for shared traffic. It's part of the neighborhood easement." "Nope," I said, popping the P. "This road was grandfathered, in on my title deed. The HOA has no legal authority here." That's when she pulled out her phone and started filming. "You're going to jail for hostile obstruction and possibly entrapment." "Entrapment?" I raised an eyebrow. She turned the phone to face her. "This man has locked the neighborhood out of required access." "You mean the road you're not entitled to use?" She spun the camera back. "At the gate." "You're going viral." "I hope so," I said, and then calmly turned, walked back to the porch, and dialed the sheriff myself. 15 minutes later, 2 county deputies pulled up. Lights on, sirens off. They were used to calls out here. Usually noise complaints or the occasional dispute about livestock runoff, but as soon as they saw Karen pacing in front of my gate with her phone in one hand and a tire iron in the other, they slowed to a crawl. One got out. Deputy Reeves, a guy I'd seen around town a few times. Rodeo belt buckle. Real calm type. "Ma'am," he said, holding up one hand like he was talking to a wild horse. "Why don't you set the metal bar down and step away from the property gate?" Karen spun on him like he was part of a conspiracy. "I live here. I'm the HOA secretary. This gate is blocking access to shared land, and this man is violating community law." Deputy Reeves turned to me. "You own this property?" I nodded. "All the way from that post to the creek. Easement map is in my file if you want to see it." Karen huffed. "It's irrelevant. He's part of Maple Ridge and must follow the rules." Deputy Reeves didn't even flinch. "Ma'am, you are not on HOA land anymore. This is clearly marked private property. There's a fence. There's a lock. There's a deed on file. You need to step back." Karen blinked. "You're siding with him? He's hostile." Reeves adjusted his hat. "Ma'am, If you continue to pull on his gate or tamper with his lock, that's criminal trespassing under state code. She laughed, loud, sharp, and absolutely losing it. You can't be serious. This gate is ugly. It's aggressive, and it makes the neighborhood look like a militia camp, Reeves shrugged. Aesthetics aren't a crime. Trespass is. That's when she snapped. She lunged at the gate, trying to wrap the chain around her wrist like she was chaining herself to a tree for Greenpeace. This is a community road. I'm claiming resident access. I raised both hands and looked at Reeves. You seeing this? Oh, I'm documenting it, he said, turning to his partner, who was already recording on his body cam. Another 5 minutes passed before Reeves had Karen fully talked off the property. She walked backward, the whole way, yelling that she'd be bringing this to the board and that we'd see what the compliance committee has to say. I waved. Tell them to read the tax rolls before they open their mouths. She stormed off to her car and peeled out like a teenager after curfew. Reeves looked at me and chuckled. That woman's gonna have a hell of a week. I leaned against the fence post. You have no idea what's coming. Later that day, a bright orange citation was duct-taped to my gate. Violation of HOA Rule 12.4. Unauthorized structure in shared access zone. Remove immediately. There was no signature, but I knew the handwriting, and I knew exactly how to respond. Because what Karen didn't know, what the entire HOA forgot to check, was that 3 years ago, I quietly bought the deed-restricted strip of land that included this road from a cattleman who couldn't keep up with tax payments. They thought it was HOA land, but it never was. And now it's mine. By the time I walked back from the barn the next morning, there were 3 new envelopes zip-tied to the gate, not slipped in the mailbox, not mailed properly, zip-tied, bright red, laminated, screaming HOA energy. The first one read, Notice of non-compliance. Immediate removal required. Per Section 12.4.2 of the Maple Ridge HOA Compliance Code, your recent installation of a metallic obstruction gate without committee approval constitutes a direct violation. You have 48 hours to remove the gate or face escalating fines and board escalation. The second one was even more absurd. Emergency. Access warning. By locking the main gravel path, you have created a safety hazard and are restricting access to community emergency response routes. And the third? That one hit a little different. Shared viewscape encroachment. Report to design board immediately. Your gate interferes with the natural sightline designated in the original Maple Ridge development plan. As such, it must be modified or removed to restore neighborhood aesthetic alignment. I laughed. Out loud. Shared viewscape? What were they expecting? A Tuscany postcard view of my fencing and hay bales. But I wasn't laughing an hour later. My wife came home early that afternoon from the school where she teaches. Her hands were trembling as she held our 6-year-old in one arm and pointed toward the driveway with the other. Some idiot just flew down the gravel road doing 40 and nearly clipped my bumper, she said. I stepped outside. Dust was still hanging in the air like fog. The gate had been opened temporarily for a delivery, and someone used that moment to tear through like it was a shortcut to the freeway. She looked me dead in the eye and said, I want that gate locked at all times. I don't care what that HOA banshee says. I nodded, not because I needed permission, but because now this wasn't about land. It was about safety. That night, I drove down to the county assessor's office in town and asked for the full parcel, overlay for the eastern part of the neighborhood, specifically parcel 12B, which included the gravel road in question. It took the clerk 5 minutes to pull it up. Ah, she said. Yeah, this right here? That easement was never formally transferred to the HOA during development. Says here it was sold in 2019 to... She paused, looked at me, grinned. You. I nodded. Can I get a certified copy? She handed it over. Highlighted, parcel 12B, owner, J. Harris, private use only, no public right-of-way easement, recorded. So not only did I own the road, I owned the access they were claiming I was violating. I sent a PDF copy of that parcel map to the HOA email. Subject line, "Please review your own mistakes before taping garbage to my fence." I attached photos of the 3 violation notices, and I ended the email with, "Next time you trespass to zip tie fraudulent citations, I'll have you removed for littering and harassment. P.S. That shared viewscape you're so worried about? You're welcome to it. From behind the fence." No response. 2 days later, another letter came, this time certified. Final notice. Forced removal warning. Due to repeated non-compliance, Maple Ridge HOA will pursue legal action to remove the unauthorized gate and restore community safety standards. And taped to the bottom of that letter, a printout of an aerial image showing my property with a giant red circle scribbled over the gate and the words, "Illegal installed barrier," written in Sharpie. They were getting sloppy, and I was getting tired of playing polite, so I went further. I called my land attorney, Doug, an old ranch guy turned title shark. Within 2 hours, we had copies of the original developer plat maps, the transfer deeds, and even the easement. Clauses from the original HOA incorporation package. Doug whistled through his teeth as he read the HOA's supposed road claim. "This ain't even a shared utility corridor," he said. "There's no public or communal access right in any of this. It's your road. They're bluffing. Hard." "Can I shut down all through traffic?" I asked. Doug nodded. "Legally? Yep. Post a sign. Log every entry. If they cross after notice, it's trespassing. If they tamper with the gate again, it's criminal mischief." "And Karen?" He smiled. "She's the best part. If she's the one pushing this garbage and she's not authorized by board vote, that's personal harassment. And if you really want to scare her, we can file a civil stalking claim based on her gate behavior and presence outside your property." I leaned back and laughed. "Let's do it." The next morning, I hand-delivered envelopes to every HOA board member's mailbox. Inside was a copy of the county plat, my deed to Parcel 12B, the utility corridor map proving there's no public access, and a signed statement from my attorney. From this point forward, use of the gravel road across Parcel 12B without written. Permission will be considered unauthorized entry and subject to trespassing penalties. I also taped a laminated sign to the front of the gate. Private Ranch Road. No HOA access. Trespassers will be recorded. Repeat offenders will be prosecuted. This land is under private ownership and not subject to HOA oversight. HOA Hacker Board certified. That evening, I checked the security camera. Karen had marched up to the gate again. This time, she brought her own padlock. She tried, unsuccessfully, to chain the gate open, as if she had the right to force entry for neighborhood freedom. She struggled with the chain for 5 minutes, gave up, and stormed off, but not before flipping off the camera and writing "abuser" in chalk on the ground in front of the gate. What she didn't realize? The neighbor across the street saw the whole thing, recorded it from his porch, sent it to me with the subject line, "Your girl's losing it again." By the weekend, I had more than just trespassing threats lined up. I was building a full case. Video evidence, fake notices, abuse of power, civil threats, property tampering. And it all led back to one person, Karen, the woman who screamed about shared roads without reading a single plat map, the clipboard warrior who zip-tied HOA notices onto a gate she had no right to touch, the one who now, legally, couldn't step past the ditch line without crossing into civil liability territory. I didn't want to fight dirty, but she didn't leave me much choice. Because now, this wasn't about power, it was about principle. She wanted a battle? I was building a war chest, and next week at the HOA board meeting, she was going to learn exactly who owned the road she thought she ruled. The morning after Karen tried to padlock my gate open like she was taking back the Alamo, I filed the paperwork. petition to restrict non-owner access over parcel 12B, filed with the county clerk, backed by 3 maps, 2 notarized deeds, and a declaration from my attorney, Doug. It wasn't dramatic, it was just quiet power. Once that went through, the entire gravel road, the one Karen swore was part of community access, was legally closed to everyone except me and whoever I approved in writing. And guess what? That approval didn't include her. I printed 5 official notices, laminated them, and posted them at every entry point. Private access only, no HOA traffic. Under county ruling, 4851B, this road is deeded as private land with no public or communal access rights. Unauthorized entry is considered trespassing. Violators will be photographed and reported. And at the bottom, just for style, I added, HOA hacker verified. That same day, I delivered copies to the entire HOA board, with return receipts. The email I sent was short, clean, and legally brutal. This serves as formal notification that the Maple Ridge HOA has 0 authority over Parcel 12B or its access route. Any further contact, tampering, or false notices will be documented for litigation. Karen Madsen is hereby forbidden from entering or altering any part of my property. That includes the gate. That includes the fence line. That includes the ground she keeps drawing chalk messages on like it's her 3rd grade sidewalk. And still, silence. No apology. No retraction. Just simmering. Which was almost worse. That weekend, I got a call from my neighbor, Ethan. He's a single. Dad lives 2 parcels down. Keeps to himself, but good people. Hey, he said, kind of awkward. Just so you know, I, got a letter from the HOA. I knew that tone. What kind of letter? He hesitated. They're threatening to fine me $150 a day for non-compliance because I said I support what you're doing with the gate. Said I was undermining community authority. I blinked. They're fining you for having an opinion? They said I was encouraging neighbor discord, whatever that means. I clenched my jaw. Karen was trying to turn this into a political loyalty test. And she wasn't just coming after me now. She was starting to bully anyone who didn't march in HOA lockstep. You want me to handle it? I asked. He paused. You already are. That's when I stopped playing defense. I called Doug again. Time for that restraining order, I said. He filed the paperwork that day, a civil harassment restraining order citing ongoing trespass, property tampering, false notices use of HOA authority for personal targeting, 1 recorded incident of attempted forced gate access with padlock. The last one came courtesy of another neighbor, Linda, who recorded Karen's chain stunt from her porch cam. It was clear as day. Karen dragging a lock across the dirt like a cartoon villain, muttering to herself and yelling, "This isn't over!" to absolutely no one. The next HOA meeting wasn't public. It was closed door, supposedly off record. But HOA gossip has a shorter shelf life than fruit on a dashboard. Word got around quick. Karen flipped out when she got the restraining order paperwork, tried to claim I was stalking her, tried to say I'd installed the gate just to harass her, tried to say she was protecting the neighborhood from rogue landowners with militant tendencies. And when the board asked her for proof, she stormed out mid-meeting, left her clipboard behind, didn't even come back for it. That's when Lisa, another board member, finally done with Karen's chaos, called me. You didn't hear this from me, she said, but they're going to vote to suspend her pending legal review. You broke her spell. I hung up, walked out to the gate, and smiled at the camera. Karen had made this personal. Now it was legal, but she wasn't done, because petty has a shelf life longer than common sense. The very next morning, she came back, pulled up in her beige sedan, walked right up to the gate like she'd never been served anything, and started yanking on it again, with gloves this time. My camera system pinged me in real time. I watched on my phone as she paced, pulled, shook, and finally sat down cross-legged on the ground like she was staging a protest. I didn't call the deputies. I sent the video to Doug. Within 24 hours, we had the evidence we needed to add a violation of the temporary order to the case file. 1 more strike, and she'd be looking at a full protective order and a possible fine. That night, I hosted a little get-together for the neighbors Karen had bullied. Just 6 of us. Grill going, beers out, country music low. Ethan brought burgers. Linda brought her porch cam USB. Everyone felt lighter. Like we'd finally gotten the HOA off our necks, at least for a moment. My wife raised a toast. To good fences, better gates, and knowing where your land begins. We all laughed, except I wasn't laughing on the inside. Because I knew Karen wasn't done. Her type doesn't apologize. They escalate. But now, I was ready. The next board meeting wasn't just going to be about Karen's meltdown. It was going to be about who really owns what, and who's been bluffing the whole time. The new gate arrived Thursday morning. Steel frame, motorized lift, weatherproof keypad, dual cameras, one mounted high, one embedded in the post for license plate capture. The installer looked at me like he wasn't sure if I was building a security compound or a small fortress. I just smiled. Not paranoid, I told him, just tired of HOA fantasy. By noon, it was up and running, and this time, I didn't hang a paper sign. I installed a plaque, laser-etched, stainless steel, private road, no HOA access, per county. Deed number C 4851B, owned land. No recorded easement. HOA activity prohibited surveillance active. HOA hackery figured, if they were going to keep sending fake citations, I might as well give them a real reason to scream. The next HOA board meeting was scheduled for that Saturday. Technically, HOA meetings were public. But ever since Karen had turned them into her own personal courtroom, attendance had dropped to basically nobody. The board held them in the clubhouse meeting room, linoleum floors, flickering fluorescent lights, and about as much warmth as a dentist's waiting room. But that week, people showed up, and they didn't come for bagels. I walked in 5 minutes before start time, wearing boots, jeans, and a black zip-up hoodie that just said "Boundary Respected" across the chest. I brought one thing with me, a flat black presentation. Board. On it? 4 color printouts. The county plat map with parcel 12B highlighted in green, the certified deed with my name in bold. A screenshot of Karen attempting to padlock the gate open. A freeze frame of her flipping off the surveillance cam with the chalk word "abuser" under her feet. I leaned it against the wall and waited. When Karen entered the room, everything in her body language screamed denial. She walked fast, chin up, eyes darting, like if she ignored enough people fast enough, reality would go away. She sat in her usual seat, second from the left, and didn't say a word. The meeting started boring. Minutes approved. Trash day reminder. Then Lisa, the treasurer, cleared her throat. I believe we have a motion on the floor regarding actions taken by a current board member without proper authorization. That was my cue. I stood up, walked to the front, and placed a folder on the center of the table. Inside, copies of everything. Doug had helped me prep the packet. His legal assistant even threw in labeled tabs and red arrows to keep it idiot-proof. I looked around the room. This folder contains county property records, security footage, and legal correspondence proving that parcel 12B, including the gravel road the HOA has attempted to control, is privately owned. No easement exists, no access is granted, and no HOA authority applies. Any suggestion to the contrary is false and potentially illegal. Karen immediately scoffed. This is harassment. I've never claimed... I cut her off without raising my voice. You zip-tied 3 notices to my gate, issued a forced removal threat, tampered with a locked structure, violated a restraining order, and attempted to claim that a private parcel was subject to viewscape compliance. I tapped the photo of her on the board, the one with her in gloves, pulling on my gate like it owed her money. Everything you've done is here. Documented. Recorded. And none of it was voted on by this board. Silence. Then Lisa said, I move to suspend Karen Madsen from the board, effective immediately, pending review by HOA legal counsel. I second, Ethan said from the audience. He didn't even live on my road. He just came to see justice. All in favor? Lisa asked. Every hand went up. Karen's didn't. But it didn't matter. What followed wasn't just silence. It was public unmasking. Karen tried to argue. She pulled out her copy of the HOA rulebook. She flipped to Code 12.4 and waved it like it was the Constitution. But Lisa held up the deed. This trumps your clipboard, Karen. Someone from the back muttered, Finally. Karen turned, mouth opening, then closing. No one came to her defense. She stood, straightened her skirt, gathered her things. Before leaving, she hissed loud enough for everyone to hear, This whole place will fall apart without standards. I replied, calm as ever. It's not the standards we had a problem with, Karen. It's the way you enforced them like a tyrant on a power trip. The next day, I received a printed letter. Official HOA stationery. Apology and resolution. Notice. Dear Mr. Harris, after board review, we acknowledge that no HOA authority exists over Parcel 12B. All previously issued notices are void. We apologize for the inappropriate actions taken by our former board member. Moving forward, the HOA recognizes your full legal rights to maintain, secure, and manage your property as defined by county law. Sincerely, the Maple Ridge HOA Board folded. Inside the letter, a copy of the revoked violation records, marked closed in red stamp. No fine, no warning. No further contact, exactly how it should have been from the start. I stood at my gate that evening, watching the sun drop behind the oak line, gate locked, camera humming, keypad blinking green, and as if on cue. Karen's car drove by. She didn't stop. She didn't look. She just drove, slow, defeated. The way a person moves when the fantasy of power has finally met the reality of law. They never did replace her on the board. Nobody wanted the position after that. Instead, the board rewrote two key rules. No HOA. Action can be enforced on parcels not formally transferred into HOA charter. All board decisions regarding individual properties must have majority vote approval before contact. Lisa texted me that night. She left the group chat. I replied with a photo of my new gate and a caption, Still locked, still legal, still mine. Karen's house went dark a week after the board meeting. No porch lights, no dog barking through the blinds, no daily routine of garden hose battles or HOA flyers in neighbor mailboxes. She didn't announce her departure. She didn't post on the neighborhood group chat. Didn't put out a for sale sign. Didn't say goodbye to a single person. She just left. And if that sounds cold, it was warmer than the way she treated this community. The woman who once patrolled the sidewalks, like a clipboard-wielding prison warden, was gone, without ceremony, without warning, without a single person missing her. That was the most poetic part. I drove past her old house a few days later. The shutters were closed. The flower beds looked like they hadn't been watered since her last outburst. One of the HOA-compliant landscaping plaques had fallen, sideways. There was a single white sticker slapped on the front window. Owner transfer. Do not disturb. I parked for a second and just stared. The same woman who told me my gate was a community disruption, the one who tried to fine a schoolteacher for hanging wind chimes, the one who labeled my road a security risk, had packed up and ghosted the very neighborhood she tried to run like a kingdom. The community changed fast after that. The HOA, for starters, got smaller. Lisa became interim president. Ethan, the guy they tried to fine just for siding with, me, got voted in as a board member. First order of business? A public HOA charter correction mailed to every resident. No HOA authority shall extend to parcels not deeded to the HOA association. Private driveways, unshared access roads, and any boundary-defined land are to be governed strictly by the legal owners and not subject to HOA oversight, citation, or policy enforcement. They even named it the Parcel Boundary Amendment. But you and I both know what the neighbors started calling it. The Karen Clause. As for my property, the gate stayed up, the signs stayed clean, and so did the gravel road. I gave keypad access to 3 people: my wife, my ranch hand, and the county vet. That's it. Every now and then someone from the neighborhood stops by the edge of the ditch line to look at the gate, not out of anger but curiosity. Like it's become part of the neighborhood lore. One time I caught a couple walking their dog stop and take a selfie with it. I was inside the barn when I saw them on the camera. I didn't chase them off, I just waved from the doorway. Weirdly. Enough. The gate, the thing they once claimed was dividing the neighborhood, has turned into a symbol of something else entirely. Proof. Proof that if you fight back the right way, with truth, law, and patience, you don't just win. You set the boundary once and it holds. A few weeks later, I hosted a BBQ. No agenda. No politics. No HOA clipboard check-ins. Just neighbors, music, cold drinks, real laughter. Ethan brought ribs. Linda brought her world-famous cornbread. My wife made peach cobbler from scratch. One of the newer families brought their 2 kids, who rode around the edge of the pasture on a little red dirt bike. No one worried about decibel limits. No one stressed about aesthetic violations. Nobody handed out warnings. At one point, Lisa stood next to the fire pit and said, "We forgot what community felt like until the HOA got out of the way." There's a wooden post now, just 10 feet inside the gate. On it sits a small black and white sign. Burnt, edges, hand-carved. Private road, respect boundaries. And beneath that, bolted into the post at an angle only the truly curious notice: HOA hacker. My wife calls it a souvenir. I call it a warning. And every time I walk past it, I remember something Doug, my lawyer, said early on. She didn't cross your land because she misunderstood the rules. She crossed it because she thought rules didn't apply to her. That was Karen's fatal flaw. She mistook permission for weakness. She believed authority was about volume, not proof. She assumed people would back down when faced with the threat of a fine, never realizing she was going up against someone who didn't just read the rules. I owned the road the rules didn't apply to. It still stings sometimes, how far she pushed it. The fake citations, the threats, the chalk writing on the driveway that took 3 pressure washes to fully remove. But then I check the camera feed, see the clean gravel, the silent gate, the untouched mailbox, and I breathe again. Because now, nobody touches the fence. Nobody. Zip ties fake violations. And nobody thinks they own what they don't. This wasn't just a win for me. It was a wake-up call for the entire block. The clipboard era is over. The trespassing tantrums are done. And all it took was one locked gate and someone unwilling to roll over. Turns out the gate wasn't the real problem. It was the boundary they could no longer cross. If you're still watching, let me ask you something. Ever had a Karen? Try to run your neighborhood like she was sheriff, mayor, and HOA cop all in one? Ever been fined for a fence, a garden light, or leaving your gate closed on your own land? Then you're in the right place. Drop your story in the comments. We want to hear it. Smash that like if you believe property rights still matter. And don't forget to subscribe to Us Stories, where we turn every HOA horror story into real-life poetic justice. New stories drop every week, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next.